introduction to plugins video, we saw the basic rudiments of how to set up your templates in Visual Studio and how to create plugins. In this video, we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive of the various events that you can catch and the sort of manipulations that you can perform on data, the events that you can see as data is changed, and the changes to the UI that you can make. As we said before, there's a lot of flexibility in the system, so there's many different things you can do, but let's just look at a few examples. So here we're back to our base plugin that was made by our template. And the first thing we're going to do is, let's say we want to catch the event that says that the capacity summary has been updated for whatever poll I happen to be working on. And we want to provide some sort of visual cue as to what the status of the poll is. So I'm going to save my tool strip that was passed in. So that I have it available for future use. So if I say C tool strip equals the tool strip that was passed in, I now have it available. And now let's catch an event. So C PBL and main dot, and we want to catch the capacity summary updated event. This is where IntelliSense really helps you out. And of course, Visual Studio will fill in the delegate for you. And let's just put this up here so it's a little prettier. And now I know that whenever this event is fired, the capacity summary has been updated. So if I go to say PBL main dot current poll load info, this is my object that tells me the state of the current poll loading calculation. And I'm going to say get the MCU value, so capacity summary MCU, it's a function, returns a double. So this value will be my percent of MCU. Now at this point, it's important to know that in exactly the same way that O-Calc uses inches for all units values, and it's up to you to convert them to whatever units you wish to display, all values for percent are in the range 0 to 1. So I'm going to say that if the percent of MCU is greater than 0.8, so we're more than 80% loaded, then I want to say this tool strip dot back color equals let's say make it a sort of a light red color, else tool strip dot color equals color dot light green. Okay, and off we go. So let's go ahead and run this, see what happens. O-Calc's going to fire up. And I load this poll. And it's calculating down here. And it's just done calculating. You see, well, we're at 32%. So it passed, and it made my visual cue up green. So now let's say my preferred way of working is that I don't want to see this. I just want to have a visual representation of what the current status is. My tool strip background color is always going to indicate what's going on. Let's see if we can force this guy to overload. We'll just take these two spans out and we'll just overload it for tension. And it's going to go ahead and recalculate, and there, now we're at, it turned red on us, and now of course I got to come back to my capacity percent to see what in fact it actually was. Yeah, so 247%, so 240% is overloaded by the rules that I set in my plugin. And as easy as that, I've pretty substantially changed the operation of O-Calc Pro, both visually and under the covers, to give me a different sort of visual feedback as I do my operation. And there's all sorts of things we can do like this. Let's take a look at another example. So another event that I can catch here is what's called the test and prompt save event. And it's the event that gets called before a poll is saved to a PPLX file. And it allows me to intervene and say, no, there's something wrong. You haven't done something that I expect you to do, and prevent the save operation and prevent the closing of the poll. So cppl main dot test and prompt save event. Again, IntelliSense helps it, is our friend, and Visual Studio fills everything out. And you see that here I get my test and prompt save event, and it passes me in a value that it expects me to fill out that says, hey, should I cancel the save event? Now, just to save us a little time, I'm going to paste in a little chunk of code that I wrote so you don't have to watch me type. So typically, I'm not going to cancel, but now I'm going to get the poll. If there is, in fact, a poll loaded, I'm going to say, get the poll number value, and let's say that in my company, the business rules are that the poll always starts with ABC. So if this poll number doesn't start with ABC, it's going to pop up and say, hey, you need to fix the poll number and set the cancel event to true, or the cancel value to true, in which case the save is going to not occur. So let's go ahead and run this guy. And it thinks about it for a second, and here I'm going to just load up a poll that I happen to have laying around. Here's my poll. If I look here, you see my poll number is, I don't know, 153483M, perfectly reasonable one, but my rules say that I want it to start with ABC. And so if I say I want to close this poll, it says, nope, you need to fix the poll number. So let's actually prepend ABC. And so now the poll number matches my rules. And when I say I want to close the poll, now what it says is, this poll's not saved. You want to save it? Because I actually changed the value. I say, yes, I want to save it. It goes ahead and close it, and all is right with the world. So what you can do, and you can do all sorts of things with this. You can also catch the save event and pop up a menu item that says, actually we're going to go to another folder. You're not saving it to the right location, that sort of thing. So this same idea is used a lot in that you can intervene in the performing of various operations. So let's take a look at what would happen if you want to intervene in certain edit operations. You want, for example, certain users not to be able to edit certain attributes. The event that you use to do that is called the edit control event, which means you're controlling the editing. So if I see ppl main dot edit control, now you'll see what you get here is a fairly complex structure. Let's go take a look at the definition of this. And the first thing you have is the type of operation that's being performed. So the operation enum. So I'm adding something to the inventory, I'm deleting from the inventory, I'm substituting. So basically every sort of operation, including catalog operations, new poll operations, attribute editor operations, geometries, poll versioning, guying operations, you have control over absolutely everything, and you can, in very fine detail, control what O-Calc can and cannot do and how it does it. So let's take a look at what else we have available in our structure. What's the operation being performed? What's the element type? So is it a poll, is it a span, is it whatever? Lets you have a little additional logic. The actual instance of the element being edited, and the actual attribute being edited, and then this value that you can set saying, I want to allow it or not allow it. And so by default, that value is true because it's going to do what the system would normally have done, but you can override it. So let's take a look at one of these. As before, just so you don't have to watch me type, I've got a little chunk of code that I can paste in here that I previously wrote. And so what I'm going to do, we're continuing our rule from before about our poll needs to have a poll number that starts with ABC. So I see that the attribute I'm trying to edit is in fact the poll number attribute. And I don't have to go get the poll and get this value because I actually was passed in as part of my edit control event arguments the actual element. So I can just say get that value. If it already starts with ABC, don't allow me to edit it. There's no reason I would ever want to edit it. It's already correct. And we can talk about semantics later about maybe you need to fix it. But let's just say for the case of this example, if it's already correct, I don't need to edit it. If it isn't, then I need to be able to edit it. Otherwise, I could never pass my test and prompt save rule, and I could never get out. So you have to be a little careful about that. So we'll go ahead and run this. And it's going to cook for a second, and up we pop. And so if I open up the poll that we just fixed in the last example, so we already know this one starts with ABC. If I now look here, you notice the poll number is actually read-only. I can't edit it. It's already grayed out. But let's open a different poll. Let's open up one that I haven't fixed. And again, we look at our poll number. Now in this case, poll number is unset, so it's going to let me change this. So if I say ABC 1, 2, 3, it flips, and you notice it flipped itself immediately over to read-only because it's now no longer editable. I've already set it to something that I like. And you can permanently disable, permanently enable, or programmatically control what you can even allow. You can even use this to override the fact that something by default in the catalog is usually read-only, but in your instance you'd like to be able to edit it. You know, you could change the modulus of rupture of the wood poll. You know, we when we set up the catalogs think that's a bad idea, but you may disagree, and so you can control it and basically set it so that allow is always true. So that's how that works. The other thing is that I can actually catch edits, in fact, happening. I can see, okay, when this was changed, I can catch the new value, and I can do something like keep some external data source synchronized. So let's take a look at how you might do that. Oh, I'm not going to save that. So the event in that case is, hang on, my mouse wire got stuck there. The edit completed event, so see PBL main, edit completed, and we have our new event. And in the same way we saw the edit control event arguments, let's take a look at the edit completed event arguments. You'll see that they're quite similar. So let's take a look here. So you get, now you got to remember that there are bulk edit operations, right? I can hold down the shift key and select multiple things. So in this case, instead of the edit allowed event, which worked only on a single element and attribute, this is a list of all of the elements that I was editing, might be one, and the actual attribute that I have edited, and then I can do something with that new value. So it's only got two lists. It's got the list of elements that I edited and the identifier of the attribute that I changed. And I don't know. Let's just do something really simple so I don't have to fool around too much. Now you notice there's no cancel operation because this is after the fact. You had your chance to stop it in the edit control event. This is just informing you that it happened. E dot attribute edited dot attribute name was set to plus. And now let's just do the first one. E dot elements edited sub 0. We know there's at least one or this thing wouldn't have got called. Dot get value and convert to string. E dot attribute edited dot attribute name. And we'll go ahead and run that. Come on. And so I've got a poll up, and I change this value. I've got I changed the owner name to hello, and it pops up and says owner was set to hello. So you could see if I had actually added the additional logic and I had some external database where for every poll ID I wanted to keep the owner name value and I wanted to keep them in sync, I could make it so that instead of having to change it here and then having to go and change it there, I could just catch the event of it being changed here and I could automatically keep that database in sync, or some other operation. I mean, it's totally up to you what you're going to do with this sort of thing. So not all of the events have to do with just blind data editing. I have a lot of control over what sort of menus pop up too. So let's take a look at one And this one's a little bit more complex. For each of the docked windows, so for example, in the case of the inventory, main.c inventory, so that's my inventory panel. There's an event that's called menu event handler event. Now that's kind of a strange name, but you'll see what it does in a second, why it's called that. Let's look at our arguments again. The first is, this is the menu, the context menu that's about to be shown. So when you right-click on something in the inventory, or quite frankly, if you right-click it in the 3D view, it's passed to the inventory and happens there. And then here is the item index of the event of the menu that's going to be popped up. So let's take a look at what we could do. So the very first thing you notice, again, I cut and paste, is this thing gets called twice every time the menu pops up. The first time it gets called, it has an item index of -1, which says the menu has just been constructed and I'm about to show it. So what you can do in that event is in fact add something to the menu or remove something from the menu. So if you have operations that you never want your operators to be able to perform, you can actually remove them from the menu at this point, and they would never see them and never have the opportunity to do them. In our case, what we're going to do is add something. We're going to add a new menu item at the very bottom of the menu. It's just going to say plugin, bang, bang, bang. And then the menu will pop up, and then you will then be called with the index of the thing the guy picked. And again, you have the opportunity to change that. You can say, I want to change that item index to 0, which means, hey, I handled it. Don't do what you were going to do. So if I want to have more advanced operations that override existing operations, I can put them in. Or in fact, if I want to do operations before the system does their operations, I can handle it, not set the item index to 0, which means prevent further processing, and proceed on. In our case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, nope, I'm going to add my own event. When the person clicks it, I'm going to tell it no need to do any further processing because I handled it. And I'm going to pop up a little message box that says, hey, the thing you picked was done. So let's take a look at what happens when we run this. So here we've got our poll up. And when I go ahead and now right-click on any item in the inventory, now it would be up to me to actually put the menu item on only for the elements that made sense. But in our case, we just did the simple thing we did on everything. If I right-click on here, you can see our new menu item is here at the bottom. Probably wouldn't really want it underneath the cancel. You can put it someplace cleverer. But if I do my normal operation, it does whatever it would have done. Okay, but if I do my custom operation, you see it fires my little message box that says, hey, that plugin thing that you did was in fact activated. So this is the way you add things to dynamic menus. We've seen previously how you hook things to the static toolbars that are located throughout the system, but this is how you do dynamic context-sensitive menus. And the same thing is available in catalogs and everywhere else. So I hope this introduction shows you sort of the power that you have over the way O-Calc looks and the way O-Calc behaves. There's a lot more that you can do, and I would encourage you to either call Osmos and see about getting training in developing plugins, or at the very least go on our GitHub page and get the documentation of all of this, and start thinking about ways that you can tailor O-Calc to work exactly with your business practices and to do exactly the sort of operations that you wish it to do.